So there are 8 comics total associated with the Species franchise. The first 4 issues are a adaptation of the actual first movie, whereas the second 4 issues are something completely different. So let's get into it. The first comic series having to do with the Species franchise was simply titled Species, and it was that adaptation of the first movie. It came out from Dark Horse Comics in 1995 with 4 issues. The story is exactly the same. Earth sends out a signal to space, and aliens respond with information on how to splice human DNA with their DNA. The first attempt to do so creates Syl, a monstrous creature in the form of a beautiful woman who is out to procreate and thus propagate her alien species on Earth. The scientists that she escaped from try and track her down and ultimately end up stopping her before she's able to begin the end of the human race. The second comic series associated with the franchise is called Species Human Race numbers 1 through 4 from Dark Horse Comics 2 years later in 1997. The story takes place in real time 2 years after the events of the first movie, where at a pharmaceutical facility, something escapes, ripping apart many different people along the way. It turns out that this pharmaceutical company managed to get their hands on the aliens' instructions for human-alien genetic splicing, and they created a creature of their own. The difference is their creature is male, so unfortunately for Earth, it's a lot easier, in theory, for this creature to impregnate more and more females in order to propagate its race a lot quicker than Syl was able to in the movie. Time goes on, and a couple of doctors are trying to track down the creature the entire time. However, it constantly attacks women and tries to mate with them, but fortunately for the human race, all of its attempts end up not working because the creature's DNA is just too strong for human females to handle. Ultimately, we learn that the male version of the alien species ends up breaking down over time after spawning, just like a salmon would. So by the end of the story, when the creature finally thinks it's found a woman capable of carrying its offspring, it ends up falling to the ground and splatting apart into several pieces. Now, this series did have 4 issues, but it didn't appear to be an anthology series. It was telling one story of this one creature called Cal, but even though this was supposed to be one story, the series had 4 different writers and 3 different artists. So it ended up feeling very disjointed the whole way through. But it is still a brand new story in the Species franchise, not being represented in any of the 3 films. So that's it. That's all the comics associated with the Species franchise. The first series is definitely a little bit better than the second series because the second one was kind of all over the place. However, these are probably worth having if you're interested in the franchise. So thanks very much for watching, and stay tuned because I'm going to be covering more horror icons in comic form in the very near future.